We are in the Asiatech podcast studio. My name is Graham Brown. We are joined by Neville
J. Mackenzie.
Neville J. Mackenzie, fellow podcast host. And
Morgan.
And very good to have you back. You are on the journey being a podcaster. It's great to see you back. You haven't given up.
No, I have not given up. It's been it's been so enjoyable, and B, there's so much more to come.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well, let's review quickly.
So
where have we come from?
So we've come from nowhere to I've recorded, I think, 4 sort of voice podcasts, and I've also spent an hour in the studio with 3 of my colleagues, and we recorded a programme where we just had a conversation around the table.
Good.
And that was a really interesting experience when there's more than 2 of you in the room.
A first round table podcast.
It was yeah, absolutely, first one.
I want to find out about that, because today we're going to talk about getting your podcast out there. There's no good doing these podcasts and then not publishing them.
Yes, and that's
the next step, isn't it?
It is the next step, yeah. Because, funnily enough, I know there's a lot, we've talked a lot about confidence and just getting on with things. And for me, actually doing the podcasts is a step. And you know, and I'm not saying it's not scary, you know, finding your voice and becoming natural at it and just making improvements is one thing. But what I find really scary and actually quite lonely is, what do you do then? So you've got your recordings. What do you do? So of course the first thing is the editing, which I know we've already discussed in quite a lot of detail. But then comes, even if you've got to the point where you've edited your work, you've then got the whole, the whole process of actually putting it on a site and making it live. And I must admit,
into the unknown.
Into the unknown.
All right. So we'll look at the options.
Yeah.
And
Brilliant.
how you get out there. So obviously there are a few platforms which you need to get onto. There's iTunes, which is the granddaddy of podcasts. Spotify, which is now becoming one of the big players. Those are the main 2. There are other ones like Google Play, and what else do we have? Stitcher for Android. But iTunes and Spotify will probably be 80% of your market.
But before all of that, right, there's a couple of things. And one, can I ask you just a question about music on your podcast
absolutely.
As well? So how do you go, I mean, I know you can buy a lot of royalty-free music. So is it just a case of getting on a website and buying that music? Or do you have a preferred route for that?
Yeah, so you've got to be really careful with music, because it's one of those things where they can scan all the files and find music, you know, which is copyrighted. So anything that you could even buy something from somebody who does you a jingle, they could get the music, which is copyrighted, sell it to you, you put it on your podcast, and then your podcast will be struck out because they had just basically got copyrighted music from somewhere else. That happens. So you've got to be careful where you get it from. You can go to those websites and buy it, and that's quite expensive, I think, if you're going to go.
Yeah, I've had a look, and I think they vary in price, but it is quite expensive.
Yeah.
But that's the safest way of doing it, is it?
It's one way of doing it. The other options are, I mean, I'd be interested to see what you've done, is that you can go to Fiverr. That's Fiverr with 2 R's.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can just flash up. Can we get Fiverr on the screen here, just so we know what we're talking about? Go to Fiverr. You can go there and you can just launch the browser, and then you can get that out. Have a look at the Fiverr website. It's Fiverr with 2 R's. You can commission music there. I think you can probably pay about $10.
Oh, wow.
For a jingle.
Really?
Yeah. So if you just go, I mean, type in the search bar here, like jingle, for example. Yeah, let's try that. Yeah. I would produce an extraordinary jingle and theme song. So at the top there, that guy's doing it for $45, but this one's doing it here for $10, starting at 10. Then they add all the packages in. So from $10 up, you could get somebody to do the Anne Show.
Yeah.
With all that kind of thing. Yeah. Or right, you know, I mean, you get all kind of different levels, but this is a great place to go and get specific jobs. You can also get, there's something called no copyright sounds.
Okay.
So if you go to YouTube, No Copyright Sounds has a channel where all the music's not copyrighted. You can grab some of that if you know how to edit music and so on. So maybe best to go to these guys.
Yeah.
And they can give you, they can make something for you. They can grab from their catalog. That's a good starting point. Are you a musician at all?
No.
No. Sing?
No. And do you know what? Everyone else in my family is very, very musical.
Oh, right.
Well, that's another option.
That's true.
Get them to sing with you?
Get somebody. Yeah, if you've got it, then you can. But make sure you purchase it from them, because if they give it to you, it's possible that they can say, "Well, that's my copyright."
Oh.
Yeah.
So if you have, just say, "Look,
Family
I'll give
feud.
I'll give you $1 for this."
Yeah.
All right. What about yourself? Do you have music on yours?
Yeah, I did. Oh, I do. And I got somebody to do that for me.
Yeah.
I went to a professional jingle producer. And I think my jingle was about 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And I wrote a script for him. He read the script, put the music together. I purchased the music, as you mentioned before, and he did an intro, an outro, and what I then did was I then took snippets of that, and sometimes you can hear, if I have a break, I just took a chunk of that and gave a little break.
You happy with that?
I'm also thinking now of not having music. I think that's another option where you just go straight into your podcast with no music. You might have a brief 10 seconds or something, but music isn't a must. That's another option. Many podcasters just go straight in and give their intro, because it's a time thing as well.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah,
Yeah.
You want to get straight into the detail. Hey, what about a voiceover?
Yeah, that's another.
Welcome to the Anne Show.
Yeah, because I've noticed that anyone who has a voiceover, they're not using their own voice.
No.
They're getting somebody else to do it. So, what are the options there?
Same again. Let's just jump back into Fiverr. Maybe we can have a listen to some of these. They're quite good. But you have this. If we can go to Fiverr and just scroll to the top, Anish. Scroll to the top, and then just type in the top voiceover. Yeah, there's tons of voice talents. Yeah, just ignore that. All right, so just pick any of these. Just pick any of them. Let's pick this guy. Classy Australian. That's interesting. A compelling voiceover. These are quite expensive. $25, $55. What about that first one? I will voice over friendly, believable American male. Let's click him. And then we click that. Have a listen to it. Maybe you need to turn the... Yeah, we need to turn the volume up. But yeah, normally we could whack this onto the microphone, but just play that.
And show us their smarts in many different ways. They're funny, crafty, athletic,
Okay.
heroic.
Cool. So these are proper radio voices.
Mm-hmm.
You can have it with or without the music. Cheesy, not cheesy. You can pick your gender, age, accent, everything.
Wow. And they'll just combine even the jingle with the voiceover and so you've got everything.
Yeah, mine was a full package. I think cost $180.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Mine was like a lot less.
Yeah.
A lot less.
But at the time,
Okay.
that's what I found and was recommended. So
Yeah.
that's what I jumped into. Now, you've again, like if you've got family members, friends that can help you out, that's always an option. If it's all dependent on the quality you want to produce. If they can produce the right quality level for you, then go with that, because podcasting is about keeping that cost down.
Mm-hmm.
Or just do it yourself.
Yeah.
Why not just go, hi, this is Anne. This is what my podcast's about.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's just do it.
Something like that. Why not?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be really slick.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than let that stop you, jump in. I think the main thing is done is better than perfect, right?
Yeah.
So get started on that.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, "Oh, I don't like your podcast because you don't have music in it."
No, not yet.
I haven't heard that.
No.
I've heard people saying, "Well, your introduction's a bit long."
Yeah, definitely.
But you got all that. My music could be possibly a bit too long now.
Mm.
I've heard that people made that comment, but I haven't heard anyone say, well, their podcast doesn't have any intro, so I'm not going to listen anymore.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right, intros, Anne.
Yeah, so that's
What
that.
else?
What else? So the next thing is, well, let's talk about domain names.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how the best way of going about getting one of those.
Well, getting a domain name.
Well, so domain names and hosting onto, say, something like Buzzsprout.
Yeah.
So that's where I've got a little bit confused because, assume I've just, my website's not, I want to just finish, it's not going to work.
Right.
So
you mean the one you got at the moment?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to start something new.
Starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And so the question is, where do I put my podcast?
Yeah. Okay, so you have to host your files somewhere.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you can either host them on your server, assuming you've got one, that goes with your website.
Yeah, so assume I don't.
Then your other option, I guess, is SoundCloud, right?
Or Blueberry.
Blueberry you can host, but they're quite expensive, aren't they? I mean, they're like hosting for podcasts rather than like even if you had a website, you would host with Blueberry just because the traffic load would be easier, right?
Yeah, and that's with Blueberry, you're looking at the option that if your podcast does take off, then you're not going to get any crashes on your site. If you host on the site, I mean, it's possible to host on your website, and if you get a lot of downloads, then your site could crash, and it could also take out other sites as well.
Anish, can we get back onto the browser and just have a look at SoundCloud? It's soundcloud.com. Yeah, we'll have a look at what their offering is. I think they have a free offering, but it's only up to a certain amount. Yeah, let's have a look. So this is what you can do. This is what you can use to get started without a website. So if you were to go, so basically you would upload straight to SoundCloud. We don't really use it. We've experimented with it, but we intend to sort of get back into it. We have our own host, but here's a way to get started. It's like a YouTube of podcasts, right? Mm-hmm. So like with YouTube, you don't need to host it on your server. You host it on YouTube server in the same way you'd host it on SoundCloud server. I don't know where their pricing model is though. I mean, if you type in, I think, maybe we can have a look at it. Yeah, soundcloud.com/ let's have a look. Pro. You can have a look at that. See what they've got there. Yeah, so these are their pricing. So, I mean, they've got a free one, which is 3 hours upload. And then $6 a month, 6 hours. And then $12 a month for the unlimited upload time, which is actually limited. Right.
Yeah.
So it's not really unlimited. It's unlimited, limited to 20 hours a month, which I don't know.
It's quite a lot.
Yeah, it's enough. But that would be a surefire way to get started. I think you can, I don't know if you have to buy it on a year, you can buy it monthly, but that's how you could get on and your podcast out there without a website.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So if I went for something that was, one of the other sites, I could put that's a combination of, you could actually put your podcast out there, plus you could blog on there as well. And
on SoundCloud?
Well, not so much on SoundCloud, but on one of the other, because I presume on SoundCloud it is literally just the audio that you're putting out.
With a bit of intro and description and so on.
Okay. And what about your notes and things like that?
Yeah, you put all that in there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you see some examples. If you go back to SoundCloud and have a look at the, just click the top part, discover. If you click any of these, anything you like. Okay, so, well, not sort of actually. Let's have a look at the actual show itself underneath it. Yeah. So this will be your page. You have all your shows here, which I think it can expand out and have descriptions with them. So you can actually land on an individual show.
Okay.
This is your front page. And I believe you can also, what I think the good thing about SoundCloud is you sign up for that, put all your stuff on there, then you set up a website later on. You can embed all of this into your website. Right.
That's brilliant. So if I think that's where a lot of people can get very overwhelmed with starting out and thinking they've got to have everything, lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
Whereas if you went for something like this with your, with a good enough tape, at least it gets you into publishing, and you've got something that you can actually call a podcast, as opposed to I want to be a podcaster.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. What do you use?
Blueberry.
Do you pay?
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, I mean, for what I want to do, Blueberries works for me.
Yeah.
Because I am only published, say, once a month, twice a month sometimes. I'm a bit. There's still scope for me to expand into it. So I can't.
Do you have a limit on the amount of hours and so on?
There is, but you automatically get upgraded if you go over. So it doesn't sort of cut you off because you've expanded. It sort of says, okay, you're paying for this plan. You went 10% or 20% over. We'll allow you, but next month or in future, be careful. Yeah.
All right. Hosting. What's next, Dan?
There is one other option, a new option called Anchor. Anchor will take your content and you can upload it for free. Everything's set up for free. You can broadcast your podcast. The only issue with that is they own your content.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So possibly in future, once you've got over the hump, for some people it works because everything is free, they don't have to pay. But if a podcast takes off and they want to move it to a website, they'll probably have problems with that. So these are options that are occurring because the podcast world is in such a state of flux.
Yeah.
Businesses are being created, so you have to watch out for that. Free can also take away your actual content.
Yeah.
Anchor FM, that is.
Yeah.
Anchor.fm, yeah. Just having a look at it now. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. Another question I wanted to ask was about cover art.
Right.
Yeah, because there's some phenomenally good, when you look at the images of podcasts, they're so strong. And I was just wondering what you would recommend to get started with some pretty punchy cover art.
Let's go to our friend Fiverr.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Fiverr. What is on? And type in iTunes cover art. Yeah. And see what it comes up with. And here we go. Here's the search results page. So I will design. Here you go. I'll design a perfect iTunes podcast cover art for $10. So
Wow.
yeah, the thing is, I mean, some of these have got their examples down there. That one at the bottom left. If you click that one, it says podcast cover. Yeah, that one there, C7 Productions. Let's click that one, Anish, and see what it's like. Yeah, from 20. So you're paying a little bit more, but they look a bit more pro.
Yeah.
You can see here. Now your cover art needs to be a specific format, 1400 by 1400.
Right.
It can be a bit bigger now.
Yeah, that's the minimum.
Yeah.
But just get started.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
don't worry. You can
put your face on it, Anne.
Yeah.
That's all you need
That's
to
going
get
to
started.
attract a lot of listeners.
With iTunes, I think iTunes can reject cover art.
Can
so
it?
Yeah. So there
On what
are.
basis?
It just doesn't fit
Right.
to their
The
standard.
usual.
Whatever their standard is. With cover art, I would sort of recommend looking at sort of other people's programs and looking at what they've used in terms of cover art, because cover art, the difficulty with cover art is it's not just something shrunk down, because you have to be able to read what the podcast's about or get an idea of what the podcast's about from the image.
From a mobile phone as well.
Yeah.
So, choose carefully what Fiverr's producing, anyone on Fiverr, and compare it to what's out there already. Don't deviate too much from what you see, unless you're pretty confident that what you've got is going to make an impact.
Yeah, that's great. And then,
Don't get too worried about it. Though.
No.
I'll show you an example. and I'm sure he'll be cool with this, that I do share as example. If you go to, just go to Google and then type in iTunes. Yeah. Well, you're in Google already, don't you? iTunes. Just type in iTunes. And then, yeah, click on that. So this is my cover art, which sucks. It's all right.
I
It
like
works.
it.
It's
yeah,
fine.
I think it's really good.
Scroll
yeah.
to the bottom.
It's nice and bold. And
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Quite, go
Yeah.
right to the bottom, Anish. So we've done a few episodes. Look, Analyze Asia there, which is a really popular podcast. Great content. It's just an A.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
you know,
Do you want to show them mine?
where is it?
Asia Biz Stories.
Yeah. Okay. We're
Yeah.
going to whack that up. Is it on iTunes?
Yeah.
Okay. Asia Biz Stories on iTunes. Asia Biz Stories. There you go. That's it.
I think you could go to the website there.
Yeah. No, that's not it. But an example of
Try Entrepreneurs in Action.
you're not going to find it through that on iTunes. Yeah, there you go. You're searching. Don't worry. The live search didn't work. This goes to
But
show
anyway, I
something
wasn't
about SEO there.
I did it myself.
Yeah,
Oh,
and the SEO I think as well.
Yeah, I did the podcast myself. So or
Okay.
the cover art myself. So
mhm.
that's always an option.
Yeah.
All right, cover art done. What else, Anne?
So you've put it on,
Yeah,
and you've put it on iTunes and all the others.
I think SoundCloud will feed into iTunes for you.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how do you? I mean, it's a big question, but how do you attract people to listen to it?
Wow. Oh, that is
Yeah.
the $1 million
It
question, Anne.
is, it
How do you
is,
attract
isn't it?
people?
Well, for the first stage, I
Right.
mean, you know, obviously, just you've literally gone live, or you've started to go live. Do you think you have to do a you know, sort of some kind of pre thing? Do you
Yeah.
have to be on every single social media, or what's a simple way of doing it?
You gotta hustle.
Yeah.
That's it. You
Mm-hmm.
got to get out there and you got to hustle. You got to tell people, share it,
Yeah.
ask them to subscribe,
Mm-hmm.
ask them to like and give you a 5-star review.
Yeah.
You've got to get out there and hustle because your first network is going to be the people around you and they're going to be the most generous.
Yeah.
So I think one of the best ways to start, once you're on iTunes, SoundCloud's a bit harder because people don't use SoundCloud unless they're a podcast listener. But most of your friends will know iTunes or Spotify. Once you're on there, put the post out on social media, on LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever you use, and say, hey, I'm on iTunes. I've just gone live.
Mm-hmm.
Would love it if you subscribe and leave me a 5-star review.
Yeah. And you literally just give them the
link. Yeah.
and tell them, and that's what they do. Because I think some people get very confused about, you know, when people say subscribe,
Yeah.
or they get confused as to what exactly do you mean. You
Right.
know, but I suppose if you keep it very simple, just give them a link, press this link, and then, you know, tick to subscribe, and then, you know, just follow the steps to send
Follow the
me a
instructions,
review.
yeah. That's the best way. And the thing is, when you launch on iTunes, Spotify might be the same. They have like an algorithm, which is basically if you're new, then like anything you post on social media now, there's like a window, isn't there? When you post it, the platform is measuring you to see if your content's any good.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a sample of the network and shows that content to that sample, so 100 people, like on LinkedIn, for example. And if it's rubbish, it buries your content.
Right.
But if your content's good, it boosts it. iTunes is the same. Once you're on there, it says, is this any good? We don't know yet. We can't know until people interact with it. So it will show a few people your content. And based on that feedback, it will say rubbish or boost it. It's never in the middle. They either bury it or they send it into orbit, right? It's that escape velocity. So what you have to do is in your first, what I recommend, and what podcasters recommend is do a batch of like 4 to 8 podcasts, put them all up on iTunes at once.
Okay.
Go out and hustle your network like crazy and say, everybody, I want you to listen to it, download it, review it, And that escape velocity that you're sort of trying to get in that early stage, if you can make it, then iTunes will say, oh, this is really interesting. I'm going to show it to a huge network. Most people don't ever get out of orbit because it's too hard, because everyone's struggling to get attention. But if you can just kind of hit that sweet spot and get a few reviews, and if it's a niche area that you're in, then, iTunes just might pick you up and say, amazing, boost it. And once iTunes boosts you, all the listeners come. So that's the escape velocity that you've got to get.
I love that. So get a bit of velocity behind it.
Yeah, get everybody behind it. Everybody hustling it.
Because that was another one of my questions, actually. Is do you just launch one and hope that that's going to sort of get a little bit of interest, and then another one, and then another one? But actually getting a batch ready, and then at least you've got content out there.
Yeah. Some people recommend 3. But then, and that's sort of a buffer so that you keep a weekly schedule, a weekly schedule. One of the important things is that you're regular, that you put out you publish regularly around the same time each month or each week or daily if you're daily. But it is the hustle. It's getting people interested. It's like getting people to your website. In the same way.
How did you hustle yours?
I haven't.
You haven't?
I haven't, no. The reasons for that is...
Can't be bothered.
Can't be bothered. It's also, I'm experimenting, trying different things, testing different ideas out, just to see how it works, rather than going and saying, look, you have to listen to my podcast because it's going to be coming out weekly. Because I don't broadcast regularly. I don't publish regularly, so it's sort of
it's by choice.
Yeah, hit and miss. That's deliberate.
Anti-hustle.
Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend that for somebody that was wanting to put out their own podcast for business reasons or branding reasons. I think that's if you're branding something, if it's for business reasons, then it has to be regular, so your audience looks forward to what you're going to be putting out.
Yes, exactly, and then you know when it's going to happen as well, and you're consistent with your timetable and everything. Yeah,
but you got to hustle.
Yeah, that's.
I think it's a challenge, isn't it? It's like a lot of people now the content world is so noisy that you can't just publish something and be found. It just doesn't happen anymore. Like you can't publish a book on Amazon and even sell books anymore. You've got to go out and hustle them. Amazon doesn't sell books for you anymore. It doesn't, unless you're big, it won't promote you already. Unless you're good, it won't promote you. So if you're new, you've got to go out and hustle. And it's the same with iTunes and Spotify and all the platforms. So those days where you could just publish something and it would be discovered by people are going away. The only things that are getting discovered are the things that have already been discovered. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
Because it won't show that to its network unless it knows it's any good, because they're all in the business of good content, right? So, you've got to hustle. You've got to get out there.
You've got to show people that what you're producing is good and worth them listening to, and then they'll come back. If you promote something that isn't good, why would they come back? So, once you're confident that your content is good and is worth listening to, and you've asked your friends and family, would you listen to this? But also remember that it has to be to the specific audience you want, because if somebody's interested in fishing and they do a podcast on fishing, but then they try and promote it to people interested in cameras, it's not going to work.
Of course, yeah.
So you have to think, who's your audience, where is your audience, and then promote it to those people. And it could be meetup groups, it could be business fairs. You go out and you hand your card out, and then when you on your card you're saying, listen to the podcast. It could be logistics, but you have to be specific where your audience is and hustle there. Don't hustle where people are going to say, well, it's a good podcast, but I'm not interested.
My time is limited. So I only want to I understand.
There's things you can do as well to help others share it. So it's always worth thinking about. We do live cards when people go live, but you can also do like a postcard. I don't know if we can flash up an example. Where would you find an example of that, Anish? Maybe from our LinkedIn page. you can see an example, and make it easy for your guests to share, because your guests are going to be really important for the success of the podcast.
Yeah.
Because, nobody likes sharing something more than something that's about themselves, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, look at me, I am famous. All right. No, if you go to our company page, Anish, so the company page is, that's the one. You scroll down. Scroll down. So, these are sort of studio photos. So just slow down a little bit. Slow down a little bit. Yeah. So studio photos, if you go up here, if you have a look at some of the studio photos, obviously these are people that come in and do studio interviews. You can take photos of them.
Yeah.
The moment, the interview.
Uh-huh.
They don't have to be like this, or they can, let's take a photo after the show, or if you do an interview, it could be in a cafe. Let's take a photo of this, with the microphones and so on, take a photo and give that to them, because they will want to share that. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
They might want to share it straight away, which means they're not going to drive stuff to your podcast because it's not ready yet.
Yeah.
When they go live, if we scroll down, maybe we can see some of the old live cards. So when they actually go on air, keep going, Anish, if you can. Maybe we'll come across one of the live cards. I think on the Pitch Deck Asia website, maybe, but yeah, that might be better. We can bring that one up. So we did this when you can produce like a show card.
I love that idea.
Yeah. So scroll down, we'll see some of these just in terms of the format, what they look like. Keep going down. Oh yeah, I realised one of the reasons why they're not there is because we give them to the guests and we don't share them, right? So yeah, okay. There you go. Should have practiced this beforehand. So we give them a card, which basically is formatted, which will have,
And
listen to me on.
In what format is your card?
I do it in PowerPoint or Keynote.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no, you won't find it on live card unless you're very lucky. So, you won't find it under there for sure. Okay, so you produce like a card. It looks like, sometimes when people say they're speaking at conferences, they publish these cards on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it has a picture of them, picture of the show or the event and the time, the date,
And
something
a link.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Give that to your guest,
Yeah.
and then they'll push it out. Those work quite well. So
I love that.
I think you've got to make it easy for the guests to share as well.
Yes.
And give them the content. Even if it's not a live card, give them the text it was about with the links and all the tags and so on, just so it's copy and paste for them.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds perfect, because I think it is literally leading people to the content in a way that they can just do on a couple of clicks or one click.
Gotcha. Right. How are we doing?
I think that's given me a lot to go
Really?
on. Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Very helpful. Yeah, really.
I think the starting
helpful.
point is to look at maybe getting your stuff onto SoundCloud as a starting point.
Yes, that is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. The free option I think is up to 3 hours. It may be enough to get started.
Yes, it will be. Yeah.
And then you can decide whether or not you want to go any further with that.
Yeah.
But I think that's the easiest option without setting up websites and.
Yes, because I was getting it. I think you can do it in a phased way. I think will work for me. Get going with something, so I've at least got something tangible.
Great.
That I can show people, and then move it on maybe at some other stage. But that's great advice. Thank you.
There you go. He's actually found it now.
Oh yes, is
bit
this
later,
your artwork? Yeah.
If we can flash that up, there you go. Well, you can't really see that very well. Oh, there you go. Beautiful. Something like that. Just a card.
Oh yeah.
On air. And that's before we go live, right? But you can do that post.
Yeah.
Publishing now, yeah.
Yeah, so you just get yourself a template, and then you can drop people's photographs in and the details, and at least you've got it set up. Yeah.
I always get their picture from LinkedIn.
Yes, everyone's got
everyone's got
a
one.
good headshot on
there,
yeah.
Because otherwise I've had people that come back and said, I don't want that photo, or that's not me. Which has happened. We just Google them. That kind of looks like them.
Oh, that's great.
That won't work. All right, and what's next? What are you doing next with your podcast?
Well, I'm recording another one on Friday,
Yeah.
so that's great. And then it's a final edit and publishing for me. So I have a bit of material. Now, the editing is difficult. It's not difficult. It's just difficult for me, and that's something I need to deal with. And I just need to do it and then get it onto SoundCloud and get it out.
How long is a podcast?
They're about round about sort of 30 minutes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's exciting. And hopefully next time we speak, you'll be published.
Yes. I think that has to be.
No excuses, Anne.
Yeah. That has to be.
Even if you get on there and do the free one,
yes.
at least you get your stuff out there, 3 hours worth.
Yeah.
You can get plenty out, can't you?
Yeah, I could actually. Yeah.
Pressure's on.
Pressure's on.
Great, you love it.
I do.
All right, Anne.
I've really enjoyed it. Actually, it's been fun.
Well, enjoyed
yeah,
it.
it's just the last steps now.
Yeah.
Which are a little bit lonely. I think that's the thing that, when you're on, it's great when you're in the studio. It's great when you're with people. It's when you have to, go home or sit down with your laptop and make it happen yourself. That's when it gets very, just a little bit difficult.
It's the grind.
Yeah.
The grind of the podcast world.
It's a grind, but it's also, I'd quite enjoy doing it if I knew what I was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think once you've done it, you realise how easy it is.
And also, if you use this course,
Yeah.
you can, the advice is there. And in the end, you just have to take the steps. Yeah.
I can't improve on that.
Did you prepare before the conversation?
Oh, it's interesting. I actually, I've gone for people that I know quite well on the whole, although the person I'm meeting on Friday I don't know particularly well. So I'm trying to keep everything very conversational as opposed to, anything to do with an interview format. So what I'm trying to develop the skill of doing is actually listening to what they're saying and then sort of shaping it that way and kind of having a natural conversation. And sometimes it works really well and sometimes it's a bit more difficult. But it's interesting when you start listening to people, obviously, who are really good at it, and then you really appreciate that you've just got to take the steps and it's going to take time before you get used to it's finding your voice and finding your conversational style and then being very natural about it. So sort of dropping any kind of, maybe there's a bit of formality, but it's just relaxing into your own voice, I would say.
Yeah, I was thinking the editing because if you're looking for perfection, you'll always keep editing. You'll just keep going and going. So you have to think of the editing process. You have to almost put a time limit on it because you can sort of think, shall I take out this? Shall I take out that?
Yeah.
Shall I rearrange? And it can just go on and on and on and on. So what you have to do is with editing, you have to be disciplined and say, that's enough.
Yeah.
I've done enough, because you'll always be wanting to tweak and tweak. So be careful of that.
Yeah, no, that's
I think
really good
the
advice.
editing starts when you do the recording.
Yeah,
Because if you bake in that sort of relaxed conversational style, then the pressure to edit's a lot less, isn't it?
Yeah. For me, it's very basic, actually. It's literally, putting the intro on. Sort of, what do I do with this? How do I stitch this thing together? It's baby steps for me. So even like de-umming and de-erring it and things like that, I'm not going to even do because I can't. It's not that I can't. It's just that I never would be ready. But it's literally the front end, the back end, gluing the thing together. And I'll actually love the idea of it. It's like stitching something together and creating something is really exciting. It's just getting used to the software and not being scared of it.
Yeah. What software are you using?
Just Audacity.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
using
Well,
Audacity.
yeah.
Yeah. And very well done. It's fantastic progress.
Brilliant.
Yeah, you've came at the beginning of the course, nothing, as you said. You just knew that you wanted to do this.
Yeah.
You didn't know what you were going to do it about. You had a sort of vague idea. It's kind of coming together. You didn't have any kind of podcast experience, technical or technique otherwise, but you got started and you had already some great results, some good interviews,
Yeah.
good conversations, more like.
More like, yeah.
Yeah.
Learned anything?
Yeah, loads. Yeah,
Good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have. And I think the main thing I've learned is just do it. Just do
That's
it.
right.
Just
It's
practice.
the best advice.
Just practice and talk to people, and don't get too worried about it.
Yeah. 1% theory, 99% practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is Anne Morgan, everybody, star of the Anne podcast. Does it have a name yet? Watch this space.
Watch this space.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and for being a great student on the podcast course. Hopefully for everybody else, they've picked up on some tips as well and enjoyed Anne's progress. And hopefully by the time that you are listening to this, or if you're watching it, we'll have some links to share, some links to Anne's podcast, so you can go and give her some support.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Graham.
Graham Brown and Neville J.
Mackenzie.
Signing out. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.